Hello.
Yeah, Jackie, we would like to ask a few questions about your profession, your experience as a production manager, and your journey to this point. So, would you rather start with your journey to this point, your experience, previous
This
experience?
journey's been over 40 years
Mhm.
coming into where I am now. I trained in theatre lighting and I won a scholarship to study in theatre, and I trained at one of the best regional theatres in the UK, studying lighting for 3 years, and then I kind of continued into the industry, and I spent 10 years in theatre lighting, being a lighting designer. Um, and then at some point at the 10-year mark, there was a realization that I wanted to know what everybody does. I wanted to know what the producer, the lighting, the sound, the stage manager, the designer did. And so that was a natural route in to production management for me. Um, as a production manager, I've been production managing for nearly 30 years now. I'm very, very new to Rada, although I've had a long relationship with Rada. I've known Rada for many, many years. I've always been a guest lecturer here. I've always been um, on the practice interviews for graduating students. Um, and many, many years ago, I first met Neil when I was also a lighting designer, and I lit a show here. But my role as a production manager now has taken me all over the States, Middle East, all over the UK, and within very prestigious theatres throughout the UK. This year I've worked at Chichester Festival Theatre, Royal Shakespeare Company, Whole Truck, over the years Royal Exchange, Sheffield Crucible Theatre, uh, all sorts of regional theatres. But I also do festivals. I also do arts festivals and art installations. I have a meeting on Friday about an opera in an old print factory. That's for next year, and I'd certainly like to take some students along with me to do that. So why am I at RADA when I kind of have this career of flying everywhere and getting on
Mm.
trains, planes, and getting in my car and driving?
Mm.
Um, it's time for me to be at home. It's time for me to concentrate on one thing at one time. As a freelancer, you're doing 3 or 4 jobs in order to earn decent money. You have to make sure that you're doing at least 3 contracts. So we have the festival in the Gielgud, and we have the festival downstairs in the GBS, and we have Shakespeare's in the Vanbrugh, and we've got the exhibition, and then we've got an installation over here. So what I love is the mix of it, but what I love more than anything is teaching students. Um, and what I want to bring to this organisation is my skill as a freelance production manager, as an experienced production manager, and I want to be able to write some new teaching modules for the first year coming in next year, and I want to be able to work with the second and third year students to make them the best production managers they can possibly be. And that's what I really want to do. And of course, it's great to go home to my home house every night, not to a hotel, not to be in an airport, not to be on a train. I want to, what I've learnt over the last 30 years, I want to bring, and it's my turn to teach these people. There's not enough great production managers.
Yes, not that you have told us that you shifted from lighting designing to production early in your career.
Mm-hmm.
So, from a very technical field of lighting, you come to the production field, which in lighting field we feel there is more artistic input are required,
Mm-hmm.
whereas production manager is more of like managerial.
There are many different production managers,
Yes.
and I'm very lucky. I've just been invited to sit on the committee for the Production Managers Forum. It's a new forum where we will grow and kind of start to share experiences. For the future in production management, I hope that the creatives will accept the production manager as part of the creative team. I think that's an important part of the future. I think that the production manager sits on this bridge all on their own. And at one end of the bridge is your creative team, and at the other end of the bridge is your team, your technicians, your chief electricians, sound engineers, your head of stage, your stage management, your company manager. The production manager manages all of those people, but has to deliver all of these creative requests. So they're talking to me, and then I'm talking to them. But really, I should be in one team or the other. As a production manager, it's managing budgets, schedules, timekeeping, and how we drill into the detail of that. Costing a show is not just saying, I'll give them £5,000. It's like, right, what exactly do we need? What do we need to deliver for this show? If we're going to hang something, we need to put a cost in for what the hardware. So it's about communicating, and it's about the detail. And for me, I very much want to have an open door with the creative team, so that I'm part of that thinking, part of that process about various materials that we would use and how we would hang that or how we would paint that. So yeah, for me the future is to send out great students from here, of course.
As you have said that you would like production manager to be a part of creative team, and since you are got this vast experience, and now you're teaching student stage management here, so what are the ways that you're devising for your student so that they can become the part of creative team when they go and work in different kind of environment, which is more commercial kind of environment?
What I would like to introduce is that the production manager develops a really good relationship with the designer and goes on that journey with that person, so that they kind of begin to understand how each other are thinking and begin to understand what can and what cannot happen. And they go on that journey together. What you don't want is a production manager that says no, 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 no.
Yes.
You want to say, we can't do that, but maybe we can do something else. Maybe we can find another way to make this happen. I've worked on shows with small budgets to large budgets. A lot of the time, the designer has no idea of how much things cost. In the short time that I've been here, I've met with design students, and that's what I want to do next year, is that have that relationship with the design student so that they understand what sort of relationship they're going to have with a production manager. Because the production manager will many times turn around and say, it's too much, or we can't afford it. But what I also want the production manager, and I don't want that to be a surprise to the designer. The designer should know that. And the designer should have a sense of how much things cost. Certainly in the industry in the UK, the budget is in a designer's contract. And I'm fairly certain that figure, that amount of money, the designer has no respect for it whatsoever. There are very, very few designers who understand the importance that I have to reach a target, and that if it goes over, I have to ask for more money. A producer might say to me, "No, forget it." You know, we wear many hats as production managers. We are really the technical producer the show. Very much so. We are a creative person. We are a manager. We are in charge of the safety and of people's timekeeping and the money. So always at the end of the day, people are coming to that one person. I love production managing. I absolutely love it, and I want students to love it, and I want them to go out of this college with the best information they possibly can get, so that there's no surprises. The difficult thing is that you don't become a production manager the minute you walk out of college. You have to work your way up.
Yes.
So if a student here in their second and third year are doing production manager roles all the time, they're still not going to be a production manager when they leave. They have to go into the industry and work their way up.
Okay.
But I want them to have the best experience possible, so when that time comes, they remember what they've learned.
Your experience of production, managing production from small to large scale, and when you're teaching your student, they must be getting information from you how to handle all these things. But as you have said, that this creative team, being a part of creative team, is very important for production manager. And in future, do you see happening that more and more in commercial and other theatre as well?
I would love to see that. I think you strike up a relationship with your designer, and sometimes that's great, and you have an immediate rapport or connection. Sometimes you work with a designer and the relationship is terrible. Part of my job is to make us have a good relationship, and to be that and be part of the decision-making process, instead of... It's interesting, there are new health and safety regulations in the UK called CDM, Construction Design Management. And the Health and Safety Executive of the UK call the production manager the principal designer.
Okay.
And the reason they call us the principal designer is that we make the decision at the end of the day about the safety of the set.
So in a way, you are saying that you are the principal responsible for the safety as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Legally.
Yes, absolutely. And as a freelancer, I'm insured up to £10 million. I must be. You know, if something happens, when I'm in charge, I must be insured.
Okay.
When you work for an organisation and you're a full-time member of staff, then you are covered under the roof of the building. But I had a situation a couple of years ago where a designer created big circular cyc around the back. There was no way for the actor to get off stage. So my thinking is, okay, so we have to find another exit for the actor in the event of a fire. And that impacts on the design. And so that's that's why you're called a principal designer, and that's why you have to have a good, healthy relationship with the set designer.
And in a way, that production manager is an interface between the designer that particular theatre company or school hires. So all those designers, be it costume designer, light designers, that Rada might be hiring. You are the interface. Probably you here the production manager is deciding who should be hired for what kind of work, or it is...
Yes, I mean certainly Neil and I will decide which designers come in.
Yes.
Next year. I don't think at Rada there are so many freelance set design lighting designers and sound designers. Most of the students do that.
Okay.
Matt, who is Neil's deputy,
Yes.
light shows here, and I think occasionally Neil light shows here. And on occasion, I would like to production managers shows here, because then you're working directly with the student so that they can see what the process is. But yes, certainly if a designer comes in, I will work closely with them to guide them in the direction of the student production manager. And then the student production manager, I mentor them throughout the whole process. And I would like to work very closely with them when we start fresh, in the new year.
And what about this question in commercial companies?
In commercial companies, no. The production manager does not choose the creative team.
Okay.
In commercial or regional theatre,
Yes.
no, it is the director that will choose their team, always.
So, in that sense, their role of production manager is to coordinate things, coordinate the person that has been selected for a particular production, manage their time, and manage their payment.
Not their payment as in their salary.
Yes.
No. So the way that it works, our creative team here and the director will choose their set designer, lighting designer, sound designer, composer, choreographer.
Yes. In commercial company.
Yeah, video. Yes. And the producer of the theatre will negotiate the fee for every single of these people. But they negotiate via an agent.
Okay.
Me, production manager, I have to negotiate directly with the producer. Many theatre companies are now having a technical manager, and they are bringing in freelance production managers. I'm still not sure whether that's right. It's good for me because there's more jobs. But I think it's also important that you know the building that you're working in and you kind of get to understand how the building works. And so quite often I go to a new theatre and I have to learn it like that. I have to learn the staff, the building, what the capacity is, what it can achieve. And I have to learn that very quickly, and I have to command the respect of the resident staff very quickly.
When a freelance production manager is asked to do some show, beyond some show, how many days ahead of the rehearsal or when he is hired actually?
I would say 6 weeks prep. Then you have 4 weeks rehearsal. And then you have 2.5 weeks fit up, technical, dress, preview, press night. And that's 2.5 weeks in the theatre. But it's very difficult to quantify, if you pulled all of that time together, how much time that is. I like 6 months for one show. But what usually happens is that just as I'm finishing one show, I'm starting another show. And there's always one show at the start, the middle and end. Because that's the only way we will earn decent money.
As a freelance production manager, what role do you see for those production manager after shows has opened?
Zero.
You leave.
As a freelance production manager, you are only ever contracted until press night.
Okay.
Of course, if there's problems or if something's breaking, then we talk on the phone.
Okay.
But I would leave it for the resident staff to look after it, to maintain it. So I get it to a point where the set builders build it on stage. Then I make sure the lighting happens, sound is set, video is set, that everything is ready for the technical rehearsal. The morning of the technical rehearsal, I will usually do a health and safety talk to the actors, let them walk around the set, get a feel for the set, find out where the steps are, and they will have had most of that in rehearsal.
I just want to know relation between you and a stage manager.
I am their boss.
Yeah.
And the morning of the technical rehearsal, I hand it over to them, and they run the technical rehearsal. They manage the technical rehearsal, irrespective of where I think a production manager should be placed. So I think a production manager should be part of the creative team. But without knowing it, we are very creative.
But I want to know this now you're training them to be a production manager. See what we have seen there that you have given them the right tools and skill set. But the only thing I was just want to stress a very young person at 22 or 25, if he's trained to be a production manager, if he is given the different role of some other role because he's not that experienced, what role that would be? And
I think it would be a technical stage manager.
okay.
I think it would be technician, stage technician. As a production manager, you need to know every area. You need to have an understanding of what the stage manager does, the hours that they work, because their hours, because they're on an equity contract, is different from your lighting technician's hours. Two different contracts. At the end of the day, a production manager has to understand every technical department. So whatever you pick up along that road is fantastic. So it's about communication. It's about having the maturity to be able to manage two very different types of characters, creatives and technicians. They are different.
Yes, I was coming to that point. In India, the whole team, be it technician or the creative persons, artists, actors, they're part of kind of one team. They are all working very closely together. But here we see this demarcation is quite clear. Everybody roles is quite clear. And I only link that I'm finding between the technicians and the artistic side or creative side of it is production manager. So if any creative difference arises between the two teams, the creative people sometimes are become kind of adamant in implementing an idea. So in a situation where director of the play, the designer of the play wants something to be done and which is technically, financially or safety wise is not possible, so how do you shout out at that time?
Diplomatically.
That's a very diplomatic answer.
You have to think about
Yes.
the time and the money.
Who has the last say? If it's something
normally the production manager.
No.
Normally, unless it gets to a point where quite possibly the designer will say, right, I'm going to speak to the producer, and go over my head. But normally the designer and the production manager will talk it through, and you have to be very diplomatic the way that you say no. If it's yes, then it might be yes, but you need to give us time. Or it might be no, you're £30,000 over budget already. And one of my favourite responses is, what would you like to do without in order to have this new element? They say, I want both. You can't have both.
So now that you're teaching, and what I gather from this discussion with you, you have not been taught as a production manager. What you have learned is learned from your experience, and translating those experience to teaching. So you must be having some difficulty in that, or it was easy?
The difficulty is that I can do it in my sleep.
Yes.
The difficult bit is relaying that on paper
Yes.
and discussion. You know, you can ask me to do a budget tomorrow and I'll do it. But I have to sit and I have to extrapolate all of the information and slowly, piece by piece, build that up for the student. I taught 20 years ago. So I was production manager at another theatre school for 10 years. And then 99, so nearly 20 years, I've been left and I'm back into it now.
Okay, so you don't have a structured structured course in front of you which you have to follow. What?
No. I mean, Rada has not taught production management as, you know, and I mean this respectfully, as an important role, and yet they are giving students the role of production manager, and so therefore I've said, we need to be teaching this. We need to be teaching it in the first year, and I will carry it through in the second year. Production management is, there are a set of key things that is your job, without question. But I want the student to understand what that journey is.
Production manager is not a subject, it's a skill, it's a human skill, as well as your technical skill and experience, lots of experience. So teaching this to a young student who probably was not in industry, because you have varied kind of student with you, some of them are from totally different backgrounds, non-theatre backgrounds, so teaching them to must be very difficult.
I think it's opening up a dialogue. It's kind of sharing in, I don't want it to be a classroom format with me, you know, showing a PowerPoint. I want it to be, okay guys, let's look at a model box. Let's list what we see on the model box.
Okay.
Let's get an idea of what that might cost. And what do you think you need? Because there's all the stuff behind the scenes that you have to cost for as well.
Okay.
And I'm going to say, how are you going to get it here? And they're going to say, on a truck. And I say, well, how much is the truck going to cost? So it's kind of, I think it has to be more in an open forum environment than dictating. Because it's not a technical skill.
Yes, it's not a technical skill, that's what I'm...
It's absolutely not. But it is the most important skill to be able to juggle time, money, people, venues. I've been running around 5 different places the past couple of weeks. It's crazy.
So you, when your students are 2 or 3 students are being trained for production manager, do you deliberately put them in more than one production so that they are able to cope with the challenges that they have to face in future?
I would not like to do that. I would like to make sure they only do one production at a time.
Yes.
And they do it properly.
Do it properly.
Because up until now, they haven't had the detail. And I will be loading much more onto them so that they can follow through.
So if they are in their 3rd year and they are here for production manager specialization, at that time would you like to do that? Would you like to just put pressure on them to see how they actually perform?
I will start putting pressure on at the start of term for the 2nd and 3rd year students.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that's what the most important part of it. Whether you can cope up with the pressure or not. That's what makes or breaks it, I think. Production manager.
Yeah. So it's about, it's interesting, I've kind of said to the students, it's about going to the wardrobe department, knocking on their door saying, hello, how is everything going? To the same in every single department. And I've said to the students, if you don't know how that hangs, then you don't know, do you? You've not prepared for it. So there's a lot of detail that I want to go on about, very simple things. Some students have just been hanging a picture in the exhibition for this afternoon, which I'm sure you'll go to.
Mm.
And they said, we haven't got any hanging irons. That's because you've not prepared.
And that, one more last question, kind of like last question. That being a production manager, you need certain kind of personality, I think. Not every kind of personality be a production manager. So what are the personality traits that makes a good production manager?
Oh, tolerant.
And
I think firm but fair. I always say firm but fair.
firm but fair.
Yeah.
Tolerant, firm and fair.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
being firm is also very important. Because you
If somebody is not pulling their weight, and if somebody is not saying, if somebody has said to me, Jackie, I'll get it to you for Thursday, I expect it for Thursday.
Okay.
If they haven't got it ready for me for Thursday, they should owe me the courtesy to say, Jackie, it'll be ready Friday. So it's about having a good memory to remember all of these things that are coming together. You do have to be tolerant. You do have to be calm. Really calm. You have to be patient. But also you have to be prepared to discipline somebody. If they're late, if they're not working safely, if they're rude. You know, I always want my team to be a good team. I always want my team to be a happy team. And I will always make sure that I have shared every bit of information with them. But you have to wear many, many hats. You're the boss at the end of the day.
So you have to be tolerant at 100% of time, and 40% of time you have to be firm as well.
Yeah.
Well,
it depends what crew you have.
What crew you have.
Yeah.
So thanks, and lovely talking to you.
Thank you so much. Lovely to meet you.
Thank you.